So this is the old bridge. It was built in 1937, or most of it was built in 1937. The sidewalks were appended on sometime later, about 25 years later, and I would say they're extremely narrow. It's considered functionally obsolete because the railings aren't solid for the edge of the barrier where the traffic is. The sidewalk is not wide enough to get a wheelchair through. But the bridge is also structurally deficient. It is not in very good shape. It's in good shape for an 80-plus-year-old bridge, but it's lived its full life. It's also too low elevation-wise. So we, about 10 years ago, almost exactly 10 years ago, we had the thought, if we build a flood control system, we're going to have to put gates across this bridge. Are you familiar with like the gates that are roller gates that we set up for 16th Avenue and say First Avenue? So then the thought was, as soon as we finish that gate, the bridge may be ready for replacement, and then we just wasted all our money on a gate. So that was like, well, if we're going to build a new bridge, maybe we should start planning the new bridge now and go over the top and get all the functions that we need that bridge to have. And some of those things that we wanted to address were, we wanted it to get over the top of the flood control system. How many people were here in 2008? Okay, a lot of you. Do you remember what the interstate was like? I remember having to get on the interstate down at Wright Brothers Boulevard because it was so bad at like 33rd Avenue and Wilson Avenue. We really need another crossing of the Cedar River that can remain open in a 2008 flood. It's incredibly important because that was evacuated at that time. When the flood control system's in place, the intention is no evacuations. Business is mostly as usual for the residents, the businesses, the schools, etc. And you remember how bad that was for the Cedar Rapids Community School District, and they didn't have school for how long? So we need to preserve emergency services, we need to preserve transit if you don't have a car. We need to be able to preserve public works access because we have to maintain the flood control system. We cannot maintain a flood control system with just Interstate 380. So then we started looking at how do we have what type of structure we need. I gave a presentation to City Council last night. I don't know if anyone saw that, but we were talking about how the flood control system, the walls, as you build them, the water rises up. If you take a river that was a mile wide and constrain it to 3/10 of a mile wide, two things are going to happen. It's going to go faster and it's going to go up. The current bridge has 7 piers. How can we counteract some of those rises? Because we don't want to add upstream water to, say, Mays Island or Time Check or Quaker Oats. So we went out for a design after doing public input. We actually had a online survey. I don't remember the exact number of people, but it's over 1,000 people voted in the community. We showed them a bridge like maybe you've seen, and some of them were like the Minneapolis area, with really tall concrete, couple piers in the river, but it looked more like a traditional bridge. We showed them what's called a basket handle bridge. City of Iowa City built one of those over the Iowa River on Park Road after the flood, and you may have seen people were skateboarding up or down the arch. We showed them a bridge like a little different than the one we're building. It had 2 piers in the river, and the community actually liked this style bridge, as did we as engineers. So that's actually, thank you for if anyone was the one who voted for that. What the river hydraulics are doing, though, because we didn't want more than 2 bridge piers in the river, it's not going to look like a standard bridge because your beams are usually limited about 125 foot long, and we need to go 340 foot on a span, so it had to be cable supported or like arch supported. So because of the river hydraulics and the needs of the flood control system that we could get it permitted, it led us into a signature bridge. It's a little more maintenance for us, but it actually is a difference between getting our flood control system permitted or not. by only having one pier in the river, it actually drops the water surface several inches from what the current bridge does. There's a lot of water backup with that bridge. This is what ultimately the rendering that went out for bid. City Council put this out for bid yesterday. We received bids in November, so it's this is a very complicated project, and contractors felt they needed more than 2 months to actually review the documents and put their bids together. But there's a rendering. You can see the center tower. It's in the middle of the river. We had looked at pier towers spanning the entire river, but it was getting really too close to the courthouse, and then they got even taller. This is a pretty tall tower. This building here, the courthouse, is about 125 feet tall. This is about 175 feet tall from the deck. So it's going to change the skyline. I would just say this bridge here, we didn't want to do this. You can see there's a lot of bridge piers. This is about the opposite style bridge. We've got a big opening, and then we have a lot of constriction. So partly because of what Kranvik built, we really needed to do a better job and have more flows go through. So what is the kind of the milestones and timeline here? Well, we're going to demolish the existing bridge, obviously. We're going to save a few segments of beam and railing, and we'll put that in a park to be determined, so there's a little historic remembrance of what we had. Contractor may leave the existing bridge up for a little while. We told them they can keep it up and use it to build the new bridge from if they want, but some of it overlaps and is on top of the other bridge and other is not. So they might be able to use parts of it. So up to them how they demolish it. There's 4 travel lanes, as you saw in the picture. There's 2 14-foot wide pedestrian paths, bike paths on either side, and they will connect to river trails. So today we have like 3.5-foot wide sidewalks. We have no connection to the trail along the river. So we will actually make that very friendly for non-motorized vehicles. So here's where we're at. It went out for bid yesterday. City Council passed that resolution to put it out for bid. We will present this to City Council in a public hearing, so you all get to see it first on the 22nd, I think, is of September. So any comments, if you have any formal comments you want to make to City Council, it's the 4th Tuesday of the month at 4 p.m. at City Council. We'll open bids on November 4th. Anticipate awarding a construction contract subject to acceptable bids before Christmas, and then they will get started in the spring of 2027. We anticipate this project will take a little more than 3 years of closures. There'll be some miscellaneous cleanup after that, but we're thinking it's going to be closed for at least 3 years. So it's going to be a long detour time. I had a question when the media was asking a question, what's the funding? The city has done very well. This is not something you can easily afford to build a river bridge very often. This project is $123 million that we put out for bid. It includes flood walls and the bridge itself. So I think it was 7 times we tried with the federal government. And on try number 7, they awarded us a $56.4 million PROTECT grant. And you can see that stands for Promoting Resilience Operations for Transformative, Efficient, and Cost-Saving Transportation. They love their acronyms, do they not? I will say, it really doesn't matter who's in office, the president. This project has done very well under both the last 2 administrations. We've got a PROTECT grant, we've got a Bridge Investment Program grant under different administrations. Because this is just a good project, and so it's not a political project, it's just a good project. State of Iowa was actually the first grant that we got, which is $1 million towards a city bridge fund, and it was in the late teens, but $1 million does not build you a bridge. So we had to wait till we actually basically got about half the project funded. So balance will be with local funds. Again, this is a pretty good deal to have someone else pay for half of the cost of a major flood control and bridge project.
What's the total again?
123 million is the current cost opinion. That's not just the bridge. There are flood walls that are incorporated and will go out on either side of the bridge at a certain distance. We've been working with the adjoining property owners for at least the last 5 years. We were actually over at the federal courthouse making a presentation to them today, actually this morning. We started that. We work with U.S. Army Corps of Engineers because we want to make sure the flood walls meet their standards. We've met with Ingredion and JRS Pharma, Casey's, I mean, all the adjoining property owners. But that's why we wanted to also present it to you. We really haven't shown you much since we've did our online surveys. We did know that you were interested, the public was interested in bike connections and things like that. But it's really a fairly simple, in a way, a simple design. There's really not any bells and whistles on it. It's 4 travel lanes, 2 sidewalks. It's just a specialty bridge, but we didn't have to add anything other than, I'm going to say, it will look very nice at night because we are adding LED lighting to it. So we're closed. There's a drawing document here. Take a look at that. But basically, what's going to happen is the local businesses will all have access and fire access. The detour routes for 8th Avenue, signed detour will be 1st Avenue. If you're familiar with the 2 one-ways on the east side, 7th and 8th Streets, we will be adding some temporary traffic signals to those routes because we anticipate a lot more traffic on there. So I think the only thing our traffic engineering group wants you to understand is when the project's done, those signals will come back down. I know everyone likes the signals, but the traffic counts won't warrant them anymore. So we'll put some temporary signals up on 7th and 8th Street and direct you to 1st Avenue, but you will have 12th Avenue, you will have 16th Avenue, you will have 3rd Avenue. We'll be back open. There may be some construction on 2nd Avenue, fixing some repairs. Not a major, thoroughfare. It's really 1st and 12th are the bigger 2 bridges, but you don't have to use the signed detour, but that signed detour is 1st Avenue. Bike accommodations will be on 3rd Street on the east side, and we're actually building a trail right now on the west side to connect between 16th Avenue up to 1st Street. It goes through Riverside Park. That'll be open. They poured part of it already, so it continues north of where that trail comes in from the south to the 16th Avenue. Will continue along the outside of the flood wall, and there's actually a gate where we'll go into Riverside Park, and then you can go up 1st Street to get where you're going. So we do have a trail detour, 2 trail detours, and then the signed detour will be 1st Avenue via 7th and 8th Streets. I don't know if you're terribly interested how much you use Center Park. This is an overflow parking area for amphitheater shows. That's where a contractor will lay down equipment. If you actually live in the Meyer Chelsea building, we've met with them too. They're going to be very close to contractor storage areas. We are making sure that the amphitheater will go on as normal, so contractor has to leave path through the Center Park from all the work they're doing to make sure that the amphitheater gets its trucks through and for the shows. They come in this way and then they leave out that way. Parking lot 44 will close down and also be for storage area. If any of you park in lot 44, parking will be available just on the south side of the railroad tracks there. Some of the bridge elements I've already mentioned, but it's not just the bridge. If we're raising up 15 feet, we actually have to go back to 1st Street on the west side and 3rd Street on the east side. So it's up in the air. There's going to be some decorative walls on the approach. There will be a lot of street trees added. The sidewalk will be, I think the sidewalk looks like it's maybe in some areas 4 foot, 3 to 4 foot in back of the curb. We're going to move that sidewalk about 9 to 10 feet back, so it'll be a lot more comfortable for the pedestrians. And then we put some street trees in there, so really trying to make that look much more aesthetically pleasing, and not just everybody's crammed in a small area. The lights I mentioned, we looked at lighting the cables. Anyone want to take a guess how many lights it would take to light up the cables?
Just one cable?
No, all 32 cables.
About 10,000?
That's actually not a bad guess. It was 8,006, I think, was the number. So we decided not to put lights on the cables. I couldn't imagine. They actually had cables you could, cable coverings you could indent lights into. I mean, it'd be impossible to replace that kind of bulb. So we are using LED lighting. There will be LED lighting under the bridge, and then there'll be some LED lighting at the top of the tower. But we'll light the cables, but they'll be shining up from the bottom. And you can change the colors. The cables, we were trying to get the right color because we've seen some bridges. I think I was looking at a picture of a bridge in Texas, and the first thing I noticed was all the bird poop on it. So you don't want it too dark, but if you get it white, then you see all kind of dark speckles. I wish I didn't have a white car because it was terrible in winter. The cables are going to be kind of a middle color gray. It's actually a big plastic tube that goes over it. Someone tipped me off there may be a question about ice, because ice can be on the cables. The tubes will have a circular kind of groove on it, and it actually breaks the ice up, so if ice falls off, it falls off in small pieces and flutters down. The cables are also between the sidewalk and the travelway, so there's beams underneath here. The cable will not drop any ice on a pedestrian. And if any ice does fall off again, it's anticipated to be very small. So we've got a design in the cable coverings to address that. The one thing from an environmental standpoint, there is the lead paint on the existing bridge, so that does complicate the removal of the beams. I mentioned we're going to salvage a couple beams. I think it's a 20-foot section of railing and a 10-foot section of beam. Not exactly sure where we'll put it, but we will put it somewhere near so you can see the historic elements of it. I mentioned the riverfront trails. I mentioned the trees, the relief program, which is the city's post-derecho program that this is in accordance with. And then we're building frontage roads. I don't think you would generally wouldn't have to use those, but there'll be a bridge up here and then a lower frontage road to get to the back of the courthouse. There'll be the bridge up here and a lower frontage road to get to Ingredion. So if anyone works at Ingredion, you won't have a driveway directly off 8th Avenue anymore, or the back of the courthouse. You'll enter a frontage road with a driveway a little further away from the bridge. And while the bridge goes up, then the driveway goes down to get to the existing elevation. This is probably one thing I want to mention is this is different than a lot of bridges which have the beam system which holds the bridge up. The deck is actually part of the structure, so we want to be really careful. We're going to add concrete overlay on top of the bridge, 1.5 inches, so that it does not have salt intrusion and actually impact the deck, the structural part of the deck. This is designed for a 100-year lifespan, so all the materials we're using special non-corrosive bars that you see. Sometimes you see those green bars when they're doing before they pour concrete. We're using special bars. We're using the ultra high performance concrete overlay, and we're doing some special work at the joints. You ever drive over the joints like on the existing bridges, 2nd and 3rd Avenue, bump, bump, bump. So we're going to try to address that because that's where water gets in. Once the water gets in, that's where the damage causes. And then the bridge abutments are actually flood walls themselves, so it'll be a nice clean look instead of a bridge and then a flood wall. The bridge will not go over the flood wall. The bridge will be actually sitting on top of the flood wall.
That's interesting.
That's one of the reasons the cost opinion has gone up, because we're actually building flood control at the same time. Other things that are interesting, we only, at the time we looked at this, there were only a handful of non-DOT type, Department of Transportation type of owners of this bridge. I remember talking to the city of Milwaukee that had a bridge like this, and they said it was actually very easy to maintain, and it's in a northern climate. That's probably what helped tip us to say, this bridge would work here. It's also on a curve. Most bridges are not on a curve, but we have a lot of existing things we have to avoid. So we have a bridge that is on a curve that's got cable supported. It's pretty unique. But at the same time, it's going to be a nice addition to the skyline downtown. We didn't do this solely because we wanted a nice skyline addition. We did it because we wanted the water service to drop. But we will take advantage of that. We talked about increased pedestrian safety. The downtown aesthetics is kind of what I'm talking about. The lighting, we really did look at how we can maintain these things. We made sure that from an inspection standpoint, the sidewalks are wide enough and the steel was supportive enough of inspection material or equipment so that you can drive inspection trucks down the sidewalk if we have to. We also looked at if you need a lift to change the light bulbs on the top, there are readily available lifts. Now, those of you who don't like heights may not want to get in that lift, but they are available. So we kind of looked at the maintenance. I think I had a question on camera before about how long before you have to have major maintenance. We're using the special concrete. I don't think there's going to be a lot of maintenance for the first 25, 30 years. The cables, this is held by cables, but they have that covering on the cables, so they're protected from the salt. But again, I guess I want to emphasize it's a 100-year bridge, and it provides access to emergency services. You know, the hospitals are on one side of the river, so and we all remember what it was like to get on Interstate 380. This will be a game changer during the flood. That's kind of where I'm at. We'll stay around and ask questions. If anybody comes in, we'll do this again at 5:30 or 5:45.